And I need to go live here. Hey, everybody, if you can see me, there are 3 people that can see me right now in this surprise live Instagram and Twitch and YouTube and X stream from me, John Hodgman, a sometime resident of Maine and sadly a native of Massachusetts, speaking with a full-time resident and native of the state of Maine, oysterman and senator to be. Can't speak today. Graham Platner. Graham, hello.
Hey, John. How are you? Thanks for
having me. I'm really good. This is so strange and wonderful.
It is
for me.
Both. I would say it's strange and mostly wonderful for me as well. There's definitely there's a lot to it, so it's very busy, but yeah.
Yeah, for context, I would just there's your moxie. Good for you.
I can't help it.
Good for you.
It's not fake, by the way. I have like a moxie a day. So
no. I saw your response on the Reddit. What was the name of the store? Never mind. I don't want you to dox the store where you get your moxie.
Oh, they
dox your moxie.
They told me thank you because a bunch of people came in to get moxie. So
good.
It's all very strange. But
I'm really glad. As people are filing in here. I'll give a little bit of context. My name is John Hodgman, and I spend as much of the year as I can in Maine. Long ago, my wife told me that she loved this place more than any place or person on earth, and that I would join her here in life and eventually in death. And while a couple of years ago, I went by to buy some wine at a wine shop. And there was Graham Platner shucking oysters from the Waukegneck Oyster Company. And I was immediately taken with his oysters, which are incredible. The Waukegneck oysters are amazing. They're my favorites. And we had a nice conversation, and I was then doubly immediately taken with Graham and his sense of decency, common sense, good humor, and obviously supreme facial hair, certainly compared to mine.
I trimmed this yesterday, so I think right now you are definitely winning.
I'm really glad. I think it is frankly a senatorial beard.
It definitely looks like a senatorial beard from around the Civil War era. So I think you're winning that one.
Well, in any case, we've chatted from time to time over the years as I would buy oysters from you, and we would talk about stuff in the world, and I knew that you were a person of strong principle. So it did not, I was going to say, it did not surprise me to learn that you were running for Senate, but I take it back. It completely surprised me just a few weeks ago now. It feels like you texted me saying, oh, by the way, I'm running for Senate, and I'm going to unseat Susan Collins, which were 2 pieces of extremely good news to me. And since then, obviously, you have launched your campaign. You were just in Portland on Monday, appearing with Bernie Sanders and Troy Jackson, who's running for governor here in Maine. And your campaign is just, you met with my pal Anna Marie Cox for the New Republic.
Yep.
I hear that you guys talked about Battlestar Galactica. I want to talk about that in a minute.
Well, we did.
But tell us a little bit about how this started in your life. This out of nowhere grassroots wildfire campaign for Senate.
It very much came out of nowhere. We've known each other socially for a couple of years now, mostly oysters, which is until a month ago, pretty much the only thing my life was focused on. This was not something that I was preparing for. I've not lived a life up till now that was in preparation of running for U.S. Senate.
Well, wait a minute. I believe you are the harbor master in Sullivan, Maine, which is your hometown, which is normally seen as a stepping stone to national office.
Major stepping stone. That combine that with planning board, and you have all the makings of an establishment campaign. No, it's all very surreal. It's still,
this is part of what your campaign is about to some degree, right? Which is that we kind of are brainwashed into thinking that none of us could ever run for
Yeah.
state office, never mind national office, that is entirely the territory of established career politicians or people who have their support. And so the whole idea that the country is founded on, which is citizen participation in government,
Yep.
is really kind of quashed for the most part. And instead, you feel like I could never raise the money or do what it takes or be the sociopath that is required to serve in an office. And you're turning that on its head.
This is in many ways, this is kind of a project to prove or to put proof to the concept that there is a way for regular people to re-engage with the political system.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that one of the reasons we are in the straits that we are in is that we have a political system that has structured itself and structured power in a way that it is out of grasp for regular folks. And there's like a story, there's a narrative to this as well.
Yeah.
That like power is not for regular people. That there's this other class, there's this other political element, people that have done a certain type of politics or been inside of the machine who have a certain kind of pedigree or background where like it's for them and it's not for us. And
right.
I fundamentally disagree with that. I think a reading of American history shows that power very much is for people. And in many ways, the only good things that we ever get out of our political system come when regular people, when working people realize the power that they actually have, and they organize and they build power, and then they harness that power to go get what they need. And when I say that, I mean things like the 8-hour workday, the child labor laws.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this comes out of the labor movement. A lot of it also comes out of the civil rights movement. I mean, the civil rights movement is not a story of people like writing nice letters and saying, please allow us to vote. Please treat us like equal citizens in our society. That is not what happened. People organized, they fought long, brutal campaigns that had immense amounts of strategy and immense amounts of sacrifice required to finally get what they needed. And to me, those are the legacies that when I connect with them, they give me the confidence to think that this is doable.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think that's insane. And there is an element of me that still is like, this is, I'm just like a regular guy that lives on the coast of Maine. So
yeah,
there is an element that I still like, Jesus Christ, why have I actually done this? But at the same time, the response that we have gotten just in the past 2 weeks since we launched, that to me gives me evidence that this is all true. That many people in this country, many Americans, they already knew this. A lot of us have just been waiting for a thing to connect with, to kind of give us the ability to mobilize again. And this feels like it's very much part of that project.
I mean, this is supposed to be a participatory government. And the people who were allowed to participate in this government from the beginning, it was not everyone. We've expanded that participation, I'm glad to say. But at the same time, we've forgotten to a degree that we all have an obligation to participate. If we want to see our values reflected in the government.
But I understand people's disillusionment. I myself, up until recently, all of my energy has been dumped into local stuff. Local politics, local organizing, community organizing. That is where, I certainly got to a point where I became so jaded that I felt that the only place that was worth energy, because that's where I could see real tangible wins, was on the local level. The problem is I've also had to begin to reconcile with the fact that no matter how hard you fight, no matter what good you do locally within a larger, structurally exploitive system, you're just putting band-aids on things.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, things are getting precipitously. I don't want to sound like a naysayer, but like here in Eastern Maine, like
Yeah.
the healthcare system is legitimately collapsing as we,
Hmm.
and that's not like hyperbole. It's happening right now, and it's mostly happening because one, rural healthcare is not profitable. It's in and of itself. It has been propped up for years with Medicaid and Medicare payments, and the Republican budget just cut those payments by $1 trillion over the next 10 years, simply to afford tax cuts for corporations and the ultra wealthy.
Right.
And like that, like no matter what you do locally, if the hospitals close, the hospitals are closed. And that is not a structure that you can just like mimic here in like in a town of 1,000 people. And it is, yeah, it's incredibly. I reached a point where I began to realize that we need to rebuild the concept of movement politics here in the state of Maine. We need to get people re-engaged. We need to teach people that they do have power when they organize in their workplace, when they organize in their community, when they build real community, which a lot of people in Maine already do. People know,
Sure.
like that. I do think Maine is like uniquely suited for what we are doing because Maine, despite all the polarization, despite all the right left divide stuff, most people in Maine still get along with their neighbors. And
Absolutely.
and that to me is the evidence that if we do this as like a values based thing, if we talk about community, we talk about helping each other, we talk about lifting each other up and providing everything that we can for those of us who cannot do that themselves, that appeals across the political divide in Maine.
Absolutely. So, for those who are just joining us on Instagram or my YouTube channel or my X account, which I still have for some reason, I just like when I need to spread the word about something, it does help, and I am very glad and grateful to spread the word about the Graham Platner for Senate campaign. I'm John Hodgman. I'm talking to Graham Platner, who is running for Senate in Maine, hoping to unseat Susan Collins, which would be a good thing in my opinion. And if you're just joining us now, Graham, why don't you? I mean, I know you've gone over it a million times, but tell us a little bit about your growing up in Maine, the values you took with you as you grew up, as you served in the military, how you returned to Maine, why oysters and why the Senate and why now, the whole thing.
So yeah, so I was born in Blue Hill, back when you could do that.
Yeah,
And sadly, there's not been a birthing center in Blue Hill in quite some time.
yeah,
I was raised first in Ellsworth until second grade, and then second grade we moved to Sullivan, and so I spent the rest of my childhood here in Sullivan, just actually only a few houses away from where I live now.
right.
I went
And
to
for
high,
those who don't know, Sullivan is quite a small town,
we have 1,000.
almost 1,000 people. Good for you. Okay.
It's a small town, but it's home.
Yeah.
That's where I got to come back to, and I have a deep, I don't know, I have a deep emotional connection to this place. Um, and After high school, I joined the Marine Corps, primarily out of a weird young man sense of duty, also a call to adventure. I read a lot of Hemingway when I was in high school, and I
Hmm.
thought that was what I was supposed to go do. Um, so I joined the Marine Corps. I joined the infantry, and I joined up in '04. So
Hmm.
I very quickly deployed to Iraq. Fought outside of Fallujah, fought in Ramadi. It was '05, '06. Uh, did a third deployment where we were on a naval vessel. We bounced around the Indian Ocean, some other places. Got out of the Corps in 2008 after my third deployment, and went to college briefly. It was 2008. A lot of my friends were still deploying. I kind of felt like I was not doing my bit. I was also leaving the Marine Corps as an infantry sergeant with 3 combat tours under my belt, and
Yeah.
then like being a freshman in college was a weird experience. So I
Yeah.
wound up, I re-enlisted. I joined the Army, and I went to a long-range surveillance company. I was a reconnaissance team leader. Wound up deploying back to Afghanistan in 10 and 11 with the Army,
Yeah.
and came back in 2011 and got out of the Army in 2012. And at that point, frankly, was pretty banged up, emotionally, physically.
Sure.
I was dealing with all the standard stuff you would get out of like a substantial amount of combat in the infantry, layered on top of a immense disillusionment
Yeah.
with what I had taken part in, because the reality of what I saw was not what I thought we were going over there to do. It didn't seem to be serving any of the stated goals, and I began to become incredibly critical of American foreign policy. Uh,
Hmm.
I've become incredibly critical of frankly our war making capacity. It is
Sure.
I frankly at this point primarily see all of this as a way of moving taxpayer dollars into somebody's private bank account, all on the backs of young men and women who we send over to fight these wars, and then the untold amount of people that live in the countries we destroyed, and all of that is in the service of making somebody else rich.
Right.
And it that is there is a level of betrayal and anger that I still hold over that
Yeah.
I don't think I will ever let go. I mean, it is and that animates much of my political positions these days. Because as I began to be skeptical of that skepticism began to bleed out into more things about the structure of our political system, the structure of our economic system. And I really began to see, frankly, that model just everywhere. Like
Yeah.
we have a medical system that is not made to provide medical services. It's made to extract wealth out of working people and make somebody else rich. We have a housing system that is not made to provide housing and put roofs over people's heads. It's made to extract money out of working people and make somebody else rich. Like we have a political system that is not made to represent people. It is made to represent the interests of the ultra wealthy and give them massive amounts of tax cuts and subsidies. And that, in many ways, is the core of where I've gotten to politically.
Yeah.
Um, I
So,
moved, yeah,
well, I was just going to say, so these were ideas and values that were
yes, all
maturing in
kind of
fury in your breast.
exactly. But it's all kind of so I go to college after I get out of the army.
Yeah.
And I struggle. I bounce around. I'm in school. I bartend. I'm in school. I drop out for a bit. I go back. I still have not finished. I'm like 16 credits shy of my degree, but I mean, the oysters don't care, so I don't care.
That's one of the great things about oysters. They very, very rarely judge you.
They are not academically rigorous.
They are literally closed mouthed.
Quite literally.
Yeah.
And they have no minds. But the I bounced around for a while and I struggled with this, and I struggled pretty seriously. It wasn't until 2016 I moved back to Maine, and at that point I began to get care from the VA, and that entirely turned my life around.
Yeah.
When I moved back to the VA in Maine is excellent. The VA in Maine is well funded, and it has the resources it needs to support the population it's supposed to be supporting. That's not the case across the country. There are a lot of VAs that are understaffed and underfunded, and therefore also, you just wind up with bad services.
Yeah.
VA in Maine has been great, and I began to go to therapy. I began to go to physical therapy. I began to get treatment physically, mentally. I got support for healthcare. I got support for housing.
Because you were a veteran.
Because I was a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
And that support is essentially what has allowed me to build the life that I have. It allowed me to build a business. I could take the risk of starting a small oyster farm because my healthcare is paid for. It's free for me.
Right.
It's also good. I don't deal with insurance companies. I just go and get healthcare. Like if things hurt, I just go and get them dealt with, and therefore things don't get worse over time. I got support for housing, so I can pay my mortgage, and I didn't have to, and that allowed me to take a risk, start a small company, buy a boat, go work on the ocean, and not have to worry about, like, am I going to be able to put food on the table and keep a roof over my head? Now, granted, I don't get to live lavishly, but it allowed me to build something in Waukegnak Oyster Company that I'm immensely proud of. We have built a wonderful little business.
I want to talk about those oysters. And in terms of you're not living lavishly, I mean, I don't know. I've seen you wear at least 2 other hoodies.
That's true. I do have two
So
other
you may
hoodies.
have multiple hoodies, as far as I know. I'm just saying.
Yep, I do have multiple hoodies. They all sadly have the same amount of rips and tears in them.
Yeah.
But
But
they're
when I hear about your experience of the support that you got in terms of healthcare and housing support from the VA,
yep,
and the narrative in this country is like, well, you earned that because you served in the military, and
sure.
you of course you did. Like, I certainly don't mean to undermine that, but the narrative is a little funky, right? Because it would suggest that those who did not serve in the military don't deserve basic human dignity of healthcare and other supports that are frankly not only available to veterans throughout the country at various levels of success in different state systems, but every other developed country in the world
That's right.
offers
And and we
a baseline of healthcare for their citizenry that, as you point out, is not only relieves a certain financial burden, but also an amazing amount of economic and psychological stress.
yep.
And it allows you to become an entrepreneur.
That's right.
How many people can't start their businesses that they want to start in this country that is so dedicated, supposedly, to small business, because they can't leave their job for fear of losing their health insurance?
I get a hearty chuckle. I often get invited to these like small business symposiums, and people are like, "How did you tell us how you built this successful small business in Down East Maine?" I'm like, "Oh, it's easy. My healthcare is paid for, and the VA gives me money every month to pay my mortgage."
Right.
Like, if you too can be an entrepreneur if you have that kind of support. And nobody ever likes that answer, but I'm like, that's the answer. I mean, like, that's how I did it. I don't believe that people don't want to build things in their lives.
Right.
Most people I know want to be living different lives than the ones they are living. They want to start businesses. They want to be artists.
Right.
They want to write a book. They want to do things that are going to bring them fulfillment and also bring them a sense of like of accomplishment. And right now, we live in a system where that is stripped from so many people.
Right.
So many people are not living out to their potential. So many people are living a life where they have to forego all of that merely so they can scrape by. And to me, that's holding us back as a society.
Yeah.
That is not a society that is going to be living up to its full potential. That's going to allow its citizenry and its people to live up to their full potential economically, artistically, just from like a perspective of being joyful and happy.
Yeah.
That we live in an economic system in this country right now that is essentially making sure that we don't get any of the good things. And it's all done purely to make sure that we just suck as much wealth and time and energy and labor out of everybody down here. And we suck it all up into this stratospheric place, and it enters bank accounts that will never interact with the real world ever again.
Right. Right. It's money that's siphoned off and then lost to the economy because it's just held in trust for future generations, or wealthy generations.
Exactly.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It's not circulating anymore. It's just gone.
We have two economies in this country. We have the one down here that's real.
Yeah.
And then we've got the one where all the money is. And in my opinion, we need to utilize the tax code, and we need to utilize large social programs to claw that money back, because I am of the opinion that that money was not earned. That is money that was structurally stolen from most of us.
Yeah.
That money, because the way the tax code has been manipulated, the way that we fund social programming in this country, those mechanisms have allowed that wealth to accrue, not via hard work, but merely by like a structural mechanism for it to just accrue and accrue and accrue. And so getting it back, putting it back down here in the pockets of real Americans, in the pockets of normal people, and using it to give people the support and the services they deserve to live good lives. I mean, when I say this stuff out loud, and honestly, I'm baffled why this is not a normal part of the political conversation, because it seems very straightforward to me.
Yeah.
But It's sadly a lot of people in our political system have seem to have very little interest in this conversation. So that's why we're here. That's
Well,
why,
it's against their interests, you know.
right? And it's again
It's
the interest.
these kinds of common sense ideas are portrayed as being wildly radical
Right.
and communist and all the other bad words that you can think of.
Uh huh.
When in fact, you know, everyone who ever said "Make America Great Again," there are a million insidious and gross definitions of that phrase.
Yes.
But it's like if you want to say, all right, well, you want to put America back to where it was in terms of before the civil rights movement, that's not my idea of great, right?
Mine.
You want to put it back to before the gay rights movement, the trans rights movement, that's not my idea of great.
Mine.
You want to put it back to, you know, wherever. Okay, but let's go ahead and then put it back to the tax code of the 50s.
There we go. That's it. That's the answer. I
Like
mean,
if you want to live in an idealized version of the 50s
huh.
with all of that constriction upon the lives of people who don't look like you and me, it's not my idea, but we might as well go back to the tax code where the upper bracket was paying up to 85% of income.
That's right. I mean, the a 90% marginal tax rate for the highest earners is that's not outside the realm of weird. I mean, that's not weird.
Right. That was normal.
Dwight D. Eisenhower thought that was a good idea.
Right.
And he's not exactly a paragon of radical leftism.
No.
So
No.
it is, I mean, the conversation in this country has gotten so absurd at this point where like I mean, it's very funny to me because I've of course, since this thing started, I've been called all the words.
Yeah.
Radical socialist. Everybody's like the progressive radical. I'm like, I literally just think that working people should have health care.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like that seems like it's not insane at all.
Well, it's such a dangerous idea because it does make common sense.
Right.
And common sense ideas tend to spread. And that's where they become dangerous to an establishment that doesn't want there to be universal health care for one reason or another. Greed is the reason, pretty much.
Yeah.
So
and it's I just find it so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's why we got in this thing. Was to have these like, and you know, what's been amusing to me is because I got into this is just a vehicle for me to get to say out loud to a lot of people what I think everybody already knew. And the response, it's the response that we have gotten, I think, shows that is the case. And because I did not get into this because I want to be a U.S. senator. I mean, I do. I want to use the power of the Senate to fight for working people.
Yeah.
But I didn't like wake up one day and be like, you know, I deserve to be a United States senator. I think people that think like that are out of their minds.
Yeah.
But because that's not what, like, I'm not trying to come up with a politics that's going to get me elected. I think that I can get elected on my politics.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to continue to be myself, which has been amusing because it's actually rather easy to do lots of these interviews because people just ask you a question. You're like, well, this is my answer. And then there's this moment where everybody stands around. They're like, but where's the spin part? And I'm like, I mean, you asked me a question. I gave you an answer.
Yeah, you're not crafting a message. You're answering a question, honestly.
Yeah, which is incredibly not complicated.
Yeah. I don't remember who it was that said, you know, sincerity is amazing. Once you learn to fake it, you're going to go far.
Right.
And, you know, I don't want to talk about the other side too much. You know, well, Susan Collins is her own specific thing. But, you know, the movement that Susan Collins has enabled and coddled throughout her, though she's been very concerned that she is allowed to rise and fester and return to the White House. You know, there is an element of quote unquote plain talk.
That's right.
That this person emulated, even though they're lying, in my opinion, which I think is correct.
Agreed.
And that sense of plain common sense talk is really, really powerful. And it scooped up a lot of people who felt really, really disillusioned and disenfranchised.
I will not give Donald Trump much credit for anything. But one thing I will say is that he told people that what they knew to be true was in fact true,
Right.
which is that they live in a system that is screwing them.
Yeah.
And now, granted, he's going to point at all the wrong culprits.
Of course.
He's using all of this to enrich
And
himself.
all the wrong solutions.
All the wrong solutions. But when there is no alternative answer, that's an attractive message for folks, because
Right.
telling people that the thing that they are seeing, the thing that they like know in their bones to be true, when you tell them that that's not true, they know you are lying to you. And they're not going to respect you. And look, Trump lied to them, but he told them the truth on that one thing. And for a lot of them, that was all that was necessary.
And no one else was telling them
anything.
I mean, and look, I am a Democrat, not just a liberal, but a Democrat my whole life, member of the party. Vote blue no matter who kind of guy. Johnny, like, I've got a lot of radical ideas, but I'm pretty Johnny centrist, honestly.
Yeah.
And but I have to say, the thing that really radicalized me the most, and I say this with respect to Joe Biden's service to the country over the years, as well as warts and all problems that he had, but with respect that he gave his life to public service and so forth. But to come into and talk about the economy last year, in the last couple of years, and say that it's doing well when we all know that it's not, that to me was disqualifying misconduct.
And again, people, they know it's not true. I mean, and many people are they're either going to support your opponent, and then a lot of them, and this happened in Maine, there are a lot of people that just checked out. There are a lot of people that they were like, and not because they're apathetic, not because they're not politically engaged.
Right.
They checked out because they looked at all of this and said, what the fuck is the point?
Right.
Like, and I get, like, that is not my outcome. I mean, I obviously am still very politically engaged, but I get it.
Cynicism is an outgrowth of exhaustion. And when you are working harder and harder for less and less, you're pretty exhausted and you're terrified all the time about losing your health care, falling behind, losing your housing, not being able to find new housing.
That's why I think, like, for us, we are going to be relentless on policies that are clearly going to improve the material conditions of the vast majority of Americans and the vast majority of Mainers.
Right.
And that is what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on healthcare. We're going to focus on housing. We're going to focus on affordability. And we're going to come to the table, like with healthcare, we come to the table with Medicare for all. We come to the table with a policy, not a vague concept, not it's bad, but we should make it better. That doesn't fly for me. Right. You need to have an answer.
Right.
And like that, to me, is if you do that, I think you appeal across the political divide in a state like Maine.
Yeah.
And especially if you do it in a way that is, frankly, just normal and easy to understand. You don't get bogged down in all kinds of like weird, nuanced language. You just talk about it in what it is. And when you do that, I mean, I have a lot of Republican friends who, when I explain Medicare for all to them, they all say, like, why don't we do this already? And I'm like, I mean, that's a good question.
Well, because there's a 24/7 propaganda outlet, multiple of them now, that have been raking in cash by talking a narrative for the past 30 years.
That's also why this kind, like the kind of campaign that we're going to, the campaign that we're building, the campaign that this is not a campaign of just like running TV ads. This is a campaign of building a movement and building organizational capacity in the state. The way that we reach people in such a polarized media environment is by going to them and talking to them as people.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. You cannot do it through a screen. You cannot do it through, like, you have to go out there and you have to engage with people as human beings, whether that's me as a candidate or it's volunteers who are coming in to help do this with us. And through that, we build not only like a good electoral campaign, but we also build organization. And I hope that when we're done with this, once I've won and gone to Washington as a senator for the people of Maine, that all those structures that we build, they are all still here. That all of that exists, that those networks, those connections, that those friendships, that people have built in their community and around the state, that all of that is still there. Because in the fight to come, we're going to need that. The fight to come is not going to be, it's not going to be fought and won just with like a single vote in the United States Senate. The fight to come is going to require all of us to be involved. It's going to require all of us to be able to turn out in the streets when needed. It's going to require us to show up for our neighbors. It's going to require us to put pressure on a political structure that is not going to give us what we need willingly. We need to build that. And for me, this campaign is a mechanism of doing that.
One of the things that really struck me about your early speeches was this idea that you just were talking about, that it is not about a single vote in the Senate or even 5-10 or getting a 60 vote, majority. There needs to be grassroots work in massive numbers.
Yes.
In order to gain power and to wield power such that it reflects our values, right? And, I remember the first time I ever did serious phone banking was back in 2020 for the Biden campaign. And lots of people, including me, were like, how am I going to convince this person that I get on the phone to change their mind or that I'm right? And basically the coordinators said something to me that was really, really wild to hear, especially to me as an only child. You don't matter that way. It's not your job as John Hodgman to convince someone to think the way you do. It's your job to be part of this larger organization that is putting the campaign and the values of the campaign in front of people as much as possible, and at the very basis, reminding them that there's an election happening.
Yep. Which
a lot of people don't tune into because it's so frustrating and annoying.
That's right.
And being a cog in the machine, not to dehumanize myself, but I am a profoundly self-centered person. And I think a lot of people on our, who share our values, sort of on our side of the aisle, are out there thinking like, if I just craft the perfect blue sky, everyone's going to come around and change. And that's not how change happens.
It's not.
It happens person to person on the ground and slowly,
Yep. I mean, I think about that. Like, I know people who have been engaged in like the fight for justice and equality since the Vietnam War. And in many ways, the world they live in today is worse than the one that they started organizing in. That like the hope and the structures that it's become even more depressing and entrenched. And yet those are people who are not bitter, and they understand one thing that it actually took me a long time for me to start to understand, which is that the world that we want to see, we may never see it. Right. We in the long arc toward justice in history, it is very possible that we won't be the ones to live in that world.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you can't try. And that doesn't mean you should give up, because the truth is, it is only through showing up, doing the work, connecting with your neighbors, connecting with your community, do you keep the flame alive. And you never know. You never know when there's enough tinder laying around on the ground where that flame will actually start to catch fire again. But the flame must be kept alive.
It's been a pretty dry time in Maine for the past couple of months.
I agree.
Fires can start.
Fires can definitely start. But that's the thing, though, is like if you don't put the work in to keep the structures there, to keep the things, the organizations, the skills, the knowledge present for people to engage with when the day comes, when they want to engage. Yeah. If you're not there, somebody else is going to be there. And that's what right-wing populism is. Right-wing populism is somebody else being there and giving a terrible answer.
Yeah.
And we need to build something again in Maine where that is there. And when the day comes where we maybe need to get people into the streets, where the day comes where enough people show up that they want to go learn the skills necessary to win an election, you got to be prepped. You got to be ready. And that's what for me, that's what this work is. This is about keeping that alive and just being there when the time comes. I mean, to be fair, I will say it feels like the time is close. I mean,
Yeah.
these days, it feels like there's a lot of potential and there's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
But we do need to do the work of having a place for that energy to go. And so it doesn't.
And, oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Well, I just think we also have to demonstrate, and I think your campaign is, and I think Zoran's in New York is as well, demonstrate that like energy and enthusiasm are our allies.
Yes.
Not something for the Democratic establishment to be wary of.
No, I don't understand it. I mean, it still seems to be the case. I mean, to me,
it's very unfortunate.
An energized electorate, an energized voter base, that seems good. I don't know why you would not want that, but I'm not.
And take the temperature of their energy. What are they hoping for? What are they wanting?
Exactly.
You know, and I think that across all political spectra, like people want economic justice.
Yeah.
Because this is not an economically just situation here.
No, I mean, their lives are getting worse.
And I really appreciated how you sort of alluded to the fact that our founding documents do not call for life, liberty, and the pursuit of fortune.
No.
Even though wealth has become synonymous in too many people's minds with virtue and success, but it's the pursuit of happiness. And if you live in constant terror for your health, for your job, for your house, or whatever, you're not happy. And that's not good for anybody. You deserve to pursue happiness, Graham, so I'm going to let you go in a minute.
Well, no, it's all good, John. I thank you so much for doing this.
It's my pleasure. I mean, I'm not letting you go just yet.
Oh, okay.
First, I need to. What is the website for people who are interested in learning more and volunteering and contributing?
Yep. So and I just have to do this pitch. We need help financially. We are not taking any super PAC money. We have raised, I think, 1.7 million in the past 2 weeks, all on individual donations. We need to raise more. We're not getting any help from above. Like that has been made immensely clear to me. So everything we raise and the money that we raise is going to go into building a real campaign. It is not going to just go into paying consultants because the team that we've assembled is not. We're not that kind of group.
Right.
So we need help. grahamforsenate.com is the website. You can find donation links, but what's more important than donating is volunteering, especially if you live in the state of Maine. I'm not kidding when I say that we want to build out a real movement here in the state.
Yeah.
And if that sounds like something you want to engage with, please go to the website and fill out a volunteer form. We've been having like 300 volunteer signups a day.
Yeah.
And we are currently building out the structure of our field campaign. And there are going to be lots of fun, cool opportunities to get involved. And not like in the usual, it's not just canvassing, it's not just door knocking. We're working on a whole myriad of ways to get folks in because I want everybody to have a role on this.
And I can tell you from experience, like as an only child and as a kind of a shy person, honestly, like it feels like it's fun to like craft some incredibly smart posts and send them out, but you're isolated and you're alone. And when you are actually working in an organization towards a goal, even knocking on doors, which seems so terrifying, it's honestly fun and it feels great.
It does. And you meet your neighbors. I mean, and you really, I mean, we need to rebuild the concept of community. I think we have all become so alienated, so individualized, both in our work and our personal lives.
Right.
And we need to fix that. This is not just a political problem. This is in many ways like a societal thing that we need to overcome. And for me, this campaign is going to be a mechanism of trying to do exactly that. So.
Well, I put, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch or X, you can see the website, grahamforsenate.com. That's where you go. If you're watching on Instagram, I'm just going to say it to you because you can't see the little banner that I put down there. But it's grahamforsenate.com, and that's Graham Platner, not Lindsey Graham.
That's right. Yes, different Graham.
Different Graham.
Graham is my first name. So
yes, Graham Platner for Senate. And I hope that we'll get a chance to talk again in the future. I realize I should have come to you with a bunch of Battlestar Galactica trivia questions.
Oh, let's do that another time though, because
Yeah.
BSG is like my favorite show. So
here's my trivia question for you. What was the name of the brain doctor in the final season who comes on board and stole lines from an actual Canadian actor and conducted brain surgery on Starbuck's husband?
oh God, I do not know.
Oh, the answer is Dr. Gerard, played by John Hodgman.
Well, that makes perfect sense, and
That's the only one I know.
I'll feel bad about that. Although, to be fair, I feel like you would know that one.
That's probably the only one I would get right too. But in any case, well, I heartily support your run for Senate. Indeed for president of the Colonial Republic. I'll see you on Colonial One soon, I hope. But let's please keep talking. And thank you so much for taking some time. And I hope you get a few minutes to yourself to enjoy some oysters and a moxie and the rest of this wonderful fall.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate it. We'll chat later.
All right. Take care, Graham. Thanks a lot. GrahamForSenate.com, everybody.